Have you ever felt exhausted scrolling social media? Not because you're doing too much, but because everything feels just so fake. The staged pranks, the scripted, relatable moments, in quotation, the AI generated content pretending to be real life. That one gets me. The polished perfection, curated design for views, instead of just the truth. Uh, and honestly, like it doesn't even just exist online. It exists in corporate. It exists in boardrooms. It exists in leadership conversations that um, we're saying what sounds right instead of what's real, type of thing. So we're really just we're surrounded by performance, and I think, if I'm like anybody else, we are really just craving for authenticity. So today, I really want to talk about why authenticity matters, why inauthenticity feels so draining, and why real human connection will always be more powerful than the perfect messages. So thank you for joining me. I am Allison from the Gemini Brain. I'm an intuitive, I am a healer, and I am a spiritual mentor here just to help other people connect back to their soul, to their authenticity. So thanks for joining me. Welcome to the Gemini Brain, where logic meets intuition and curiosity sparks transformation. I'm your host, Allison, and this is a space for the overthinkers, the curious, and the ones that question everything. Okay, so this has been something I have been struggling with for a bit now. And it just seems to be getting louder and more uncomfortable as it just ramps up. So I thought, you know what, maybe what I should do is like let's just talk it out. Because maybe you're feeling that way too, but it also like this is my little therapy session. So you guys get to help me release it. This is like my dear diary. I don't have to write nothing down. I'm just gonna like get it out on here, and you guys just get to read my diary. So I was, this kind of like spurred on, this kind of came on. Um, it's been something that's obviously been building, seeing social media, seeing AI videos, always questioning, is this real or is this AI? That's exhausting. It's exhausting. But I think it really kind of pushed me over the edge, when, working in corporate and really just sensing that there's this, it's like, what can't we just talk heart to heart, right? Um, there's this feeling of curated conversations, whether that's curated with customers, whether that's curated with leadership and their teams, or a corporation in general, like a curated message. And if you've worked in corporate, you might have experienced times where something's rolled out and you're kind of sitting there going like, that doesn't make sense, like at all. Like whoever made this up, whoever like put this forward obviously hasn't worked in the job. So it's all of these kind of like, where can we just like get back to, let's just be real. Like, let's just talk about the real issues, and work it out. Can we drop the facade? So, that kind of was something that spurred in me where I was just really just craving to be able to have a real conversation with leadership without the feeling of like being, I don't know, like reprimanded, and not in the sense of like I'm going to be rude or anything like that, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like when we speak the truth, it's like, oh, well, you're just, you need to have a different mindset, or you need to think of it this way or something. And instead of being like, you know what, you're right, that this is the reality, this is the struggle. let's sit here and figure it out together and sit in truth. So that really kind of like spurred it. And I thought, I'm gonna do an episode on authenticity, and kind of how we are stepping away from that more and more, and why it's important to kind of like come back to it. So um, I kind of like, sat there and was like, okay, I want to make sure I can just ramble on and go in circles. So I definitely have some talking points. I am being more professional, but also authentic, because I will never say what I don't mean. So, okay. So one of the things is like why inauthenticity feels so heavy. Like, why is that? Why can't we just be like, oh yeah, that's not real, and move on? Like, why does it, like, after a while, kind of like sit in you? And one of the things that I was thinking of with that was it's inadvertently affecting your nervous system, because you're constantly not knowing what you can trust, right? So, when you come across an AI video and it's like this beautiful moment of, this animal did this and all of these things, and you're like, oh my God, that's so sweet. And then you feel the feels, and you're just like, that's just amazing. And then you get this like little voice in the back of your head going, is this real? Because we are so conditioned now. Well, at least I am. I am so conditioned to everything to see if it's real or not, because there's been so many times that I feel like I've been duped into being like, that's amazing, and then you're like, oh, idiot, that's just like made up. I don't know if you feel that way. I think a lot of us do feel that way, and it's tiring. So, our nervous system can feel it when something's off, when something doesn't feel right. Even if we can't explain it, like, if you've watched a video and all of a sudden gone, I need to look at the comments because I'm just not sure if this is real. And I know I'm the person that goes to the comments, and then I'll see a bunch of people that, it's like, oh, okay, maybe it is real. And I'll start scrolling, and then I'll see the AI comment and be like, no, this is AI. Like, look at this, this, and this. And then I'll go back and look at it and I'll be like, oh. I'm like, got me again. Jeez. So there's a lack of trust there, that's for sure. But it's our body kind of tells us that something's lacking a truth there, just like our body tells us when somebody's lying to us. So like when someone is performing instead of just being present, like genuinely having a conversation with you instead of like just like oh yeah. And I've been with people like that where you're like, I don't think you're even like listening. That on social media, like, content is created for manipulation instead of connection. Oh, that one gets me. I truly understand that sales, I'm a banker. I am considered a salesperson. And I've never identified as that. So as much as it's like, oh, like, yeah, you're a salesperson, or, you're doing really well. And for me, I've always been like, no, like if what I'm talking, I'm talking truth. I'm never going to sell something that I don't believe in, or that I believe is going to be beneficial for somebody. So I really kind of recoil from that word. But one of the things, like, what you see is just different methods of selling. So, on social media, where there's different methods that people will kind of manipulate to create interest. And I get it that it's a great sales tool. Like, I get that. And there's a part of me that's like, maybe I'm shooting myself in my foot by not, participating in that way, or full blown, right? So not to say I haven't named things with like intrigue and stuff. Like, we got to be smart at things. But when it's just so heavily like, oh, I'm going to make this like service look like it is like super hard to get, or like you are lucky to get it or something like that. Like, I get it. I see the fine line. I really do. I'm like, but there's a part of me that rejects it. And I'm like, there's a part of me that just is craving being like, man, can't it just be like, if this is for you, then this is for you. If it's not, it's not. It is what it is, right? We all know if you want it or not. I don't need to try to trick you into wanting it. I actually wouldn't want somebody that I, tricked, because I'd want somebody that fully was committed and wanting it. So, yeah, like, we see these things on social media all the time, or, the words are polished, but there's no real energy behind it. So again, like it's this like a facade. And we often wonder, like, who we're seeing online, is that actually them, or is that like a performance? Again, like, this is my Gemini brain, my God, where I sit there and I'm like, I see both sides. And I'm like, I truly do. And I'm not saying that there's definitely the version that shows up on the podcast or the version that shows up online. I have to sometimes push myself to want to be in that energy. Is it me? Absolutely. It is a version of me every single time, but it may not be the version I am like right now. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm grumpy. It's the same thing like when I, go into work. I am somebody that even if I'm like feeling shitty or in a grumpy mood, I'm not going to be walking around scowling. I will put on a face. I will smile. Whether that's a good thing or not, whether that's like a coping mechanism, definitely, that people pleaser in me. But, I get it where there's times that we are performative and we show a certain side. But I think like when we can feel like, but what we're sharing or what we're speaking about is how we feel it and is authentic, then that comes through, versus, somebody, I know I've seen it, or I've heard it, where like somebody will be like completely a different person online than they are in person. And you're just like, what? Like, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. It really just kind of like creates this disassociation, like this kind of just this feeling of just not trusting anything. Like, you just start to like not trust anything for what it is. You kind of have your guard up all the time, and that's like your nervous system, right? Your nervous system is ready for it to not be real. Your intuition is constantly trying to reconcile what's being said versus what's like actually being felt, type of thing. And it's confusing. So, social media, I am not bashing it because I love it. I'm definitely on social media a lot, looking at videos. I'm like, my personal page is full of, animals and all those things and birds. And like, I love it. Right. So I'm not bashing that at all. But, I think where we're seeing a lot of this manipulation or the inauthenticity within social media is because there's this need for validation. Being viral is like its own currency. It has its own value. Like, unless your videos are like getting so many likes and all these things, then it like places that importance on it. And I absolutely get it. Like, if I sat there and all of a sudden one day a video went like viral, and you're like, wow, like, whoo, that video went viral. What did I do in that video? Okay, I'm going to create more of this or whatever. And it's, I can see and I can feel that feeling of like, well, like, I want this, obviously what the people want to see. And like, maybe that content starts to, then you're like, okay, it's not as grabbing. So I'm going to push the envelope a little bit more, and I'm going to push the envelope a little bit more. And we start to slowly start to step further away from like our authentic truth and our original message, to then being like, that's leading us to receive those viral moments, those, likes and follows and all of those things. So it's such a slippery slope, and to really try to like have balance in it. I for sure have had times where, I'll look at a post and be like, your value feels less when you've had hardly any interactions on it. And I'm like, that's just crazy, man, because that's called algorithm. Algorithm. I say that? Yeah. It's the algorithm. It's not you. And yeah, it's crazy. I'm like, I had posted a reel the other day, and I don't know why, but it just seemed like everybody liked it. So definitely had more views than not viral or anything. Like, come on, but definitely a lot more attention to it, and it's one of those things that I've been doing this long enough to realize like there's no rhyme or reason. There really isn't, and I'm not gonna. I posted something that I felt was a beautiful message that resonated with me, and then I shared it. So like that's coming from an authentic place. Now, am I going to start searching for other, things like that? To No, I'm like, I shared it for what it is and how I felt in that moment, um and and I'm so glad that it resonated with people, right? But like on social media, oh man, like I love myself. I love watching like prank videos. I love, watching like those relationship videos, like all of those things. And I know, like I'm not silly. I know that like a lot of it is kind of like set up. Like, you know, I don't know how somebody could live with a partner who constantly was pranking them, and they didn't know. Like for sure, I bet there's a ton that they didn't know and they're pranking them and type of thing. But I often think like, how does that relationship like go where you're like, dude, are you being real for real? Are you for real right now? Like be so for real. I'm like, you would constantly be on edge and on guard. So I would assume that, some of this is curated and fake. And I still enjoy it to an extent. But like, what's the ones recently that I've been seeing? There's been these reels of somebody talking about, their partner cheating and catching them. So like whether they're like talking to the camera and they're like, oh my gosh, like I know that my partner's cheating and this is what I'm going to do. And like, they're storytelling, which I love storytelling. But I like storytelling when it's real. Not when it's just fake. And I so buy it. I'm like, what? Tell me more. And then when I go to the connect, because now I just go to the comments all the time to tell me if it's real or fake. And fuck listening to my intuition. I know my spirit guide H is probably like, gosh damn it, Allison, can you just trust yourself? I'm like, whatever, it's just easier at times. But like there's this one that's kind of like becoming common now where like somebody's driving, and the last one I saw was somebody was driving and she was crying and like the sad music on, and then the words on the screen coming up were like, just found out my husband is cheating and I'm driving to the location to confront him and his the person. And you kind of sit there and you're like, oh man, like, wow, okay. Like, and then you go down and like, people are like, this is fake. They do this like how many times? If you look at their profile, that this has happened so many times. And so then I'm like, ew, like gross. So like, we're literally doing this just for views and likes, and this person crying, it's not real. This it's exploiting like actual real moments that are really hard and painful in life, whether it's like that or it's I don't know, like a death, or just like these moments that are just true human emotions and hardships that we go through, and it's kind of making a joke out of it, for the purpose of receiving this engagement. So then it's just like, again, like, how do you trust who's being a real or not? And like, even AI is now creating emotional manipulation disguised as authenticity. Like, so crazy, man. Um, and it's like, and this, like, and the scary part is like, people are becoming more comfortable consuming illusion than truth, right? Um, like, I've seen where there's been like these, okay, I'll think of this one reel that I saw and I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing ever. And I was like, I love this so much. And then I found out it was AI and I was crushed. It was this video of people sitting in a room at an adoption center to adopt dogs. And basically, these dogs that were up for adoption would come walking out one by one, and you were supposed to sit still, and the dog would choose their owner. So the dog would go up to whoever it was, and then like they choose their owner, and then everybody's like happy and crying, and it's so beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing, like, so cool. And then I'd seen a few of them and then found out, like, oh shoot, it's fake. But maybe it should be real. I think that's a cool concept. But it's one of those where sometimes I can see where we're comfortable consuming the illusion rather than truth, because there's a part of me that just wanted to believe that that was true, and I just wanted to kind of sit in that energy. Or like, when you see videos put together and it's like, oh, this deer was coming to their house over and over again, and then like finally they decide to follow, and then the deer took them to where their sick baby was needing help, and then they helped them, and then this deer now comes back and showed off the babies, and all these things. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. Oh, it wasn't AI. It was just a compilation of different videos. Like, it was fake story, but then it was just a compilation of different videos. And then you could clearly see at times where you're like, oh, that's not the same deer. But I get lost in the, the story of it, that I don't even see those things until I have to put on my realistic eyes and my like, what is it? Like my spy eyes, I don't trust nothing. So I'm just like, what? Like, why are we creating this? I'm like, it's just, so if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. That's okay. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it really, that part just really gets to me. And I often think, like, I have nothing against AI. I think there's, again, it's a fine line. I think there's some great, like, I use ChatGPT all the time. I think there's this great opportunity with it, and to help, make some things easier. Like, maybe it's going to make me dumber, probably is, because now I'm not thinking. But sometimes if I have to send an email and I'm like, I can get too wordy at times and stuff, and I'll like do my email, and then I'll put it in there and say, can you just like finesse it? Like, and I always see, like, it's the same message, but like words are changed in different orders, and like maybe this one of those so has been taken out, and I'm like, okay, thank you, that looks a lot better. So like, I see there's some great things with AI. But I also see where we're using it, and it's changing, in a sense, like, it's changing our history. I've seen so many videos where it's a video of history, apparently, and it looks like it looks like an old video, and you're like, what? That happened? And then you like look at the comments, or you Google it, and you're like, oh my God, that didn't happen. At what point is it going to get where these are just videos that 100 years from now people are like seeing and pulling forward, and they're just taking that as truth? And it's just, it's nuts. It's just crazy. And then it also makes me think, like, maybe, some of the history we've seen, well, for sure, some of the history we've seen, um, it meant something totally different, or it wasn't real, or it was just like a story, somebody had written on a wall as like a fun, made up thing to like tell to the kids, but then we're reading it or deciphering it now, and we're like, what? That was a thing. And they're like, bitch, please, that was a story time. Like, who knows, right? Um, and then so like online, like obviously that's just something that's just going to get harder and harder to trust and believe. Obviously we've seen where, it creates like celebrities and like doing things and saying things that they've never said, or it's unbelievable, right? So it's a little scary in that sense of, you could easily have a video or something that's doing something that you never did or never said, and having that used against you. Like, oof, so crazy. So very fine line. And then like in our day-to-day lives, so like with corporate, it can really show up really strongly in corporate, in our jobs, because it's often like, the messaging from leadership is often like the right corporate response instead of the honest one. I have always respected my leadership or my leader when they speak, truth. I would much rather somebody say, you know what, this is rolling out. I get it. Like, it doesn't really make sense, but at the end of the day, it's what the company wants, and we have to do it. I sit there and I'm like, thank you. Like, thank you for calling it out. Thank you for saying it. And I'm not silly. I'm not dumb. I know we have to roll out whatever they say, but when we sit there and we pretend to be like, no, it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. Like, get on board. I'm going to take longer to get on board than if you just set it straight. Right. And I think most people are like that. Where, meetings or like presentations of these like rollouts or meetings become about protecting the image instead of solving like the real problems. These like curated responses or solutions to problems that they just get regurgitated, and you're like, okay, but did you hear me? I said this and this and this. Your solution, that's not going to work. But if you say those things, sometimes you're deemed as like, the problem child, or, can you just fall in line and just do what you need to do? And you're like, but I'm trying to do it. Like, I am trying to help the situation but you're wanting me just to agree and say, yeah, if I do this and this and this, that will work, when you well know that hasn't worked, type of thing. And it's not going to work. So I think that's where I find it just draining and exhausting. People talking or like speaking from like the policy instead of like, humanity. Like it's just, sometimes I'm like, can we just drop the facade and like, let's just have like a person to person. Like, I'm just like, even that hierarchy, right? Like, absolutely, we respect, there is like a hierarchy and there's respect and stuff. But at the end of the day, we are the same. We are a human to human. At the end of the day, it's like, let's just talk real. I'm an adult, you're an adult. I'm a female, you're a female, like whatever it is, right? Let's just be real. I would so much rather have, like, if I had a question or anything, that I would much rather have somebody say to me, I don't know, but let me find out, or I don't know yet, instead of pretending and saying, oh, well, it's this or whatever, right? Like, just tell me. Or like, hearing the agreeing that something's frustrating or agreeing that it's hard or even like relating to it to be like, I totally get that. I find it really hard when this and this and this. Like, again, I am going to, if my manager comes to me and, like say, like I get it that it all falls down, right? And if my manager comes to me and is like wanting a specific thing, and is needing it and like in, say it's like a struggle or something, because there's things that it's out of our control. But when they kind of like let me into their world a little bit and say like, yeah, like it's really hard. Like I'm getting a lot of pressure. Like I have a lot of pressure from my boss and, they have a lot of pressure from their boss. And again, like, it's just like, even though I know that, it's when we can kind of drop again those walls and just openly talk about that, that it just, for me, it's a buy-in. I don't want to make anybody's job harder. So when I see that you're struggling, just like I'm struggling, just like they're struggling, then we're all struggling together and let's just try to team up instead of it more being like, you need to do this and this is what, and you're not doing this well. And all these things like, yeah, human connection, it is just needed. Even in like, like a sales role or anything like that. Like if I have a client coming in to complain, about something that's legit, right? Like something like maybe it had nothing to do with me, and I'm just like the person hearing it and stuff. I'm not going to sit there and like, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus because that's, there's etiquette and there's things that you're not just going to be like, oh yeah, that employee. Yeah. They're a problem. Like, no, there's integrity in that sense. But I will certainly be like, yeah, if that's something like maybe the bank or a policy or something, like I will certainly be like, yeah, like I agree. It's really frustrating and I wish I could do more. Like, and I'm genuine in that sense. I can only do what I can do. I can only do what, the support's behind me. But instead of just kind of being like, well, no, like just standing up blindly for the corporation or whatever, having a bit of that humanity without bashing your employer, obviously. But it's a balance in that, because people will appreciate that way more than coming up with this fakeness. um I do see like being authentic requires courage. And I agree that we're not going to be authentic all the time. For sure. We have to feel safe to be authentic. I know for myself, there's that people pleasing that I kind of, been trying to, you know, dislodge myself from, like kind of being like, okay, Allison, like the no boundaries, and the no boundaries lead into people pleasing, lead into this feeling of like, oh well, like if they don't like you, like you have to have them like you, because if they don't like you, like all of those type of things. So that type of healing, it takes time. And that means there are going to be times that you don't feel safe and it's not authentic because you're just like putting it on to make yourself feel safe. So I'm not talking about those moments because I understand that. But then I also understand that we have our own responsibility to heal ourselves, right? Like we all have that responsibility to recognize these things. And it doesn't mean we're going to be perfect, but when we can recognize it, like I can certainly recognize when I'm like, hey, I'll call myself out and be like, dude, like, do you need to be like that? Like, just be real. But, I think it definitely creates like a vulnerability when we are doing it. And it does open up doors for, risking judgment from others. And I think like at times it's like, let's get comfortable with being judged, because And I'm one to talk because I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But at the end of the day, we can't control what other people think and view because it's coming from their own lens, right? So there's been many times that, somebody will create a narrative about me and, oh, it really upsets me when it's not true. And I've been learning how to kind of like let that go in the sense, but I know what's true. I know the truth. Do I love that they maybe have a story about me that they think and it's not even close to the truth? No. But do I have to prove that? No, I don't have to prove that. So trying to really come to peace with that in that aspect. So letting go of, the image that we present, saying what we actually believe or feel when it feels safe. I'm certainly not going to go into a client meeting and if they start talking about politics and stuff, there's times that I'm just like, not even worth it, not even going to go there. But and then even like allowing yourself to be seen, like you, truly you. That doesn't mean you need to go online and start crying. I'm not somebody that, I know for myself, that's not something I'm comfortable with. I have a hard time, crying in front of people in person. Yes and no, I have to feel safe and then I'll cry like a baby. But it's not that like forced authenticity. I remember doing a podcast episode with Mandy, the Soul Star podcast, and I was talking about my divorce. And in that moment, the emotion came over and I tried to fight it because I certainly didn't want to. But it was there and I definitely, it was definitely known that I was struggling with it and was trying to reel myself back in. But that created it, instead of that being like, oh, I'm so embarrassed that people heard that, or, it was kind of like, but you know what, that it was truth and it was in the moment and it was emotion that was authentic, and people gravitate and want to hear that rather than something that's been like curated, right? I think that authenticity it's vulnerable and uncomfortable at times, and performance feels safer for sure. Absolutely. I definitely have times where, like I said, I'm feeling crummy, shitty, but I put on the face and I put on the performance so that, I'm not putting that on anybody else. And again, it's a balance. It's a balance. I shouldn't have to feel like I need to do that. But then I also feel like there's a responsibility of like, you don't need to, there's professionalism. That's what it is. So I think a lot of people are craving more depth, more authenticity. I think a lot of people are, we've been so saturated in all angles of, this inauthenticity. It's a hard word to say. I keep like wanting to mess it up. And we're just wanting and craving, when somebody comes on and they're just bloody real. They're just real, you know? So like we want the honesty, we want the substance, we want the truth. I love when I can have like a conversation with somebody and they've just let down their walls and they're just speaking the truth. I do it all the time, and I've definitely been bitten from being just open and just completely being, raw, in the sense of like I'm not filtering what I'm saying, even if I look in a bad light. And there's been times that that's been taken advantage of and stuff. But, I think when more of us can kind of drop that armor and start to just have heart-to-heart conversations and be real, like, oh, it's just going to feel like so good. Right. So yeah, that's kind of what I was like thinking about. And, I truly hope that, you know, when I'm on here, like, I really do want it to be authentic and organic and, just to come from the heart, and that's always my intention. But, I'm not perfect, that's for damn sure, and I've got my own, um, you know, like we all do, I have my own insecurities and things that, kind of weave into, affect, showing up, as real as possible, and that's fine. But I think if we start to, just consciously making that effort, it's just going to make such a big difference. Let's give a shout out to, I just saw this, my painting behind me. Oh, it is, there it is. Let's be authentic. It's not curated. It is not aligned. And I know for some people that's going to piss you off, but I've got like these like, little like canvas things, and one of them is like off to the side, so it's not all straight. And that's just from walking past it and it moving. So, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. Um, so thank you for joining me for this solo episode. If you are ever curious, and want to connect one-on-one, I do intuitive readings, where I read your energy and your chakras, and Akashic records, which is all about like soul purpose and soul contracts and past lives. Like there's so many things. I love doing those readings. I do energy healing, so currently remote, and it's been told that, it's been really helpful for some, that helping them protect their energy and stuff. And then I mentor. So right now I've started my 6-month container where I'm teaching others how to trust and receive their own intuition, and eventually they'll learn how to read the Akashic records and all of those fun things. And then I am doing locally, an in-person training session all about just that beginning phase of like the awakening, the spiritual awakening, like talking about these concepts of the purpose of why we're here, the human amnesia, the what happens when we go to the other side and we make these soul contracts with other people, and energy and how that works in your day to day and affects you, and learning your spirit language. So it's fun. So if you're local to me in Victoria, BC, then certainly reach out, because I hope to do more teaching live. And yeah, that's it, folks.